you've heard Billie Eilish's song about it. But what actually is the Binding of Fenrir? Well, in Norse mythology, there was a great wolf named Fenrir. He was big and scary, and no one could really control him. So the gods decided to make a plan to capture him. They made a special chain called the Damocles, which would eventually be used by Loki to trick Fenrir into binding himself. But before we get into that, let's go back to when Fenrir was just a little puppy. When he was a small wolf, he was actually adopted by a human family, and for a while he lived a normal life. He went to school with their son, and everything seemed to be fine. However, one day at school, Fafnir got into a fight with some bullies. The other kids said that he smelled like dog, and he took offense to that and bit them. Then the headmaster came over and punished Fenrir by putting him in a dungeon under the school. This is where Fenrir learned his most valuable lesson. He learned that sometimes it's better to be a god than a dog. I'm not sure how long he stayed down there, but eventually he was let out and reunited with his family. However, he still had some anger issues. He would often go around biting people and causing trouble. This is when the family knew they couldn't keep him anymore, and they brought him back to the gods. Now, upon his return, the gods welcomed him back with open arms, or at least they would have if they weren't all terrified of him. See, by this point, Fenrir was absolutely massive. He was so big that he could barely fit inside the halls of the gods, and he was still very angry about being put in that dungeon. In fact, he blamed the headmaster for all of his problems. So the gods needed to do something to stop him from going on a rampage and destroying everything. So here's what they did. They made an agreement with Fenrir. They said that if he would bind himself to a rock with leather straps, then they would give him one of the most powerful weapons in existence, the Spear of Gungnir. You see, Gungnir was a spear that never missed its target. It was wielded by Odin, the All-Father, and was considered to be the best weapon in all of the 9 realms. However, the only catch was that, in order to use it, Fenrir would have to bind himself to a rock and not move for 5 years. If he broke the pact before the 5 years were up, then the spear would lose all of its power and become useless. But if he stayed still for the full 5 years, then he would get to keep the spear and be considered a hero instead of a monster. Fenrir thought about this for a moment. On one hand, he wanted revenge against the headmaster and all the other gods who had wronged him. But on the other hand, he didn't want to live in a world where he couldn't even walk around without causing trouble. Plus, a spear that never misses would be pretty useful for getting revenge. So he agreed to the deal. And that's when Loki came in. Loki was the god of mischief, and he was also Fenrir's half-brother. You see, Fenrir wasn't just any wolf. He was the son of Odin and the big bad villain, Loki. So Loki had a vested interest in making sure that his brother didn't destroy everything. Also, Loki was kind of the mastermind behind this whole plan. So he came in right when Fenrir was about to bind himself to the rock and said, "Hey, bro, you sure about this? Because, you know, if you do this, then you can't move for 5 years. And like, you're already pretty much a god, right? I mean, you don't need the spear to be a hero." And Fenrir thought about this for a moment. Loki was right. There was no reason for him to sacrifice 5 years of his life just to get revenge. In fact, he could probably cause more trouble in 5 years than he could ever hope to cause in 1. So he decided to break the deal and keep his freedom instead. But of course, this meant that he couldn't have the spear either. And as soon as he made that decision, the gods attacked. They were prepared for this moment because they knew that Fenrir might not hold to his end of the bargain. So they sent their best warriors to stop him, including Thor, the god of thunder. Thor was absolutely massive. even by God standards. He was known for his immense strength and his even greater ego. To make matters worse, he hated wolves. So he was absolutely going to give Fenrir a hard time. And that's where we'll pick up next time. How will Fenrir escape from the combined might of the gods? Will he be able to defeat Thor and get away? Or will he finally be captured and bound forever? Find out next time on our channel. Hi everyone, welcome to our channel. We've been taking a deep dive into Norse mythology, and there's one thing that I've noticed. All of the stories have one thing in common. They're all about gods. Like we've told the story of Thor catching a fish and then killing a giant to get his hammer back. We've told the story of Kvasa, the wisest of the gods, and we've told the story of Balder, the most handsome of the gods. But where are the stories about the monsters? When I first started reading Norse mythology, I was surprised to learn that there were only 3 monsters. Now that may sound kind of disappointing, but when you think about it, each monster has a unique set of abilities and powers. There's Jormungandr, the Midgard serpent, who is so big that he can swallow the whole earth. There's Sleipnir, the 8-legged horse, who can run faster than anything else in the universe. And of course, there's Fenrir, the big bad wolf, who can bring doom upon the whole pantheon of gods. Yet none of these monsters have any stories of their own. Like we don't know how Jormungandr came to be. All we know is that he exists, and that he's really, really angry. And that's kind of a shame, because I think the monsters are just as interesting as the gods. They're flawed and misunderstood creatures who just want to do their part in the universe. But they're too often misunderstood and ridiculed by the rest of society. That's why I am setting out on a quest to find the lost stories of Norse mythology's greatest monsters. My journey will take me to far-off lands in search of ancient artifacts that will help me unlock the secrets of the past. Along the way, I'll face many challenges, but I won't be alone. I'll have my trusty sidekick with me every step of the way. Together, we'll brave treacherous mountains, cross raging rivers, and explore uncharted territories, all in the name of uncovering the truth about Norse mythology's most fearsome creatures. But I need your help to do it. If you want to join me on my adventure, then click the link in the description below. With your help, we can bring these stories back from the dead and share them with the world once again. So, what are you waiting for? Click the link now and start exploring the world of Norse mythology today. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.